Listen carefully. Your life is not random. Your struggles are not accidents. Your results are not bad luck. They are feedback. Every condition you are living right now, your finances, your confidence, your discipline, your self-respect, is a mirror reflecting the habits of your mind. And here is the brutal truth. Nothing changes until you change what you allow yourself to think, tolerate, and repeat. You don't need more motivation. You need mental authority. Most people live controlled lives, controlled by emotion, controlled by fear, controlled by the opinions of people who have never built anything meaningful. You are not weak. You are unfocused. The moment you decide, clearly, firmly, without negotiation, who you are becoming, everything else must eventually align. A divided mind creates a defeated life. A focused mind creates unstoppable force. Decide now. Decide what you want, not what sounds nice, not what looks good on social media, but what you are willing to suffer for, discipline for, and work for when no one is watching. Clarity is power. Confusion is self-sabotage. Every morning you wake up, your mind is either trained or it is hijacked. If you don't program it, the world will news, noise, doubt, comparison. That is why repetition matters, not once, not occasionally, every day. You become what you repeatedly impress upon your subconscious. If you repeatedly tell yourself you are tired, you will live tired. If you repeatedly tell yourself life is hard, you will struggle. If you repeatedly affirm strength, discipline, and direction, your behavior will follow. Belief is not something you wait for. Belief is something you build through repetition, through action, through keeping promises to yourself, especially the small ones. The world does not reward potential, it rewards execution. Stop waiting to feel ready. Readiness comes after action, not before it. Discipline is choosing what you want most over what you want now. Every time, and understand this clearly, your emotions are not commands, they are signals. You act anyway. Winners do not feel confident every day, they move anyway. Winners do not feel motivated every day, they act anyway. Persistence is not intensity, it is endurance. When things get boring, you continue. When results are slow, you continue. When no one applauds, you continue. That is where identity is forged. The moment you blame your past, your parents, your environment, or the system, you hand over your power. Total responsibility is not punishment, it is freedom. Because if you are responsible, you are in control. No one is coming to save you. No one is coming to push you. No one is coming to believe for you. You must become the authority in your own life. Your time is limited. Your energy is valuable. Your focus is sacred. Protect it. Say no more often. Cut distractions without guilt. Detach from people who drain vision instead of strengthening it. This is not arrogance. This is alignment. Small actions done daily with intention will outperform massive effort done occasionally. Consistency beats talent. Consistency beats luck. Consistency beats motivation. You don't change your life in one day. You change it daily, and one day everything is different, so watch this every day. Not for inspiration, but for conditioning, not for emotion, but for direction. Let it remind you who you are. Let it recenter your focus. Let it silence excuses. Because the future you want is not waiting for permission. It is waiting for decision. Decide, act, repeat, and your life will obey. Thought is the first cause of everything you see, touch, own, fear, or fail to achieve, because nothing ever enters your life without first passing through the mind, and nothing ever leaves your life without first being allowed there by repeated thinking. Before there was action, there was thought. Before there was wealth or poverty, confide. NCE or insecurity, discipline or chaos, there was a silent decision made internally, often unconsciously, that set everything else in motion. Your circumstances are not creating your thoughts. Your thoughts have been creating your circumstances for years. The mind is not passive. It is a factory. It produces realities, not wishes. Every repeated thought becomes a command, and every command eventually demands expression through behavior, habit, and result. Most people lose their lives before they ever begin living them, not because they lack ability, but because they never take control of the first cause. They allow thoughts to drift, to be influenced, to be polluted by fear, doubt, and borrowed opinions. A mind left unmanaged becomes a battlefield where outside voices dominate, And when you do not choose your thoughts, someone else will choose them for you. The world is full of suggestions, and every suggestion is competing to become your belief. Once accepted, belief hardens into expectation, and expectation quietly shapes what you attempt, what you avoid, and what you tolerate. Nothing grows stronger without repetition, and the same law governs the mind. A single thought has little power, but a thought repeated daily becomes a force. Repetition is how the invisible becomes permanent. What you think about consistently does not remain an idea. It becomes an attitude, then a habit, then a personality trait, and finally a visible condition. This is why people live in cycles. They think the same thoughts, feel the same emotions, take the same actions, and wonder why nothing changes. Change never begins with the environment. It begins with interruption at the level of thought. Every limitation you accept starts as a sentence you repeat internally. Every bold move you avoid begins as a quiet doubt you never challenged. Fear is not a fact. It is a thought practiced until it feels real. Confidence is not a gift. It is a thought reinforced until it becomes instinct. The mind does not judge truth. It obeys repetition. It does not care whether a thought empowers or destroys you. It simply executes what you feed it most often. This is why discipline of thought is the highest form of self-control. You can wake up early, work hard, and stay busy. But if your inner dialogue is weak, uncertain, and unfocused, effort will leak in every direction. A strong life requires a strong inner narrative. What you say to yourself when no one is listening determines how you act when pressure arrives. Under stress, the mind does not rise to ambition, it falls to conditioning. That conditioning is built daily, quietly, invisibly. Your mind is always asking one question: what should I expect? The answer you give through repeated thought becomes the blueprint for your actions. If you expect failure, your behavior will subtly avoid risk. If you expect struggle, you will unconsciously resist ease. If you expect success, your mind begins searching for alignment, opportunity, and persistence. Expectation is not optimism. It is programming. And programming determines performance. The strongest individuals in history were not those with perfect conditions, but those who refused to surrender authority over their thoughts. They understood that the first victory is internal. Control the mind and behavior follows. Control behavior and habits form. Control habits and destiny reshapes. This sequence never changes. Skip the mind, and everything else collapses under pressure. Every day you rehearse a version of yourself. Through thought, you decide whether you are disciplined or distracted, focused or fragmented, determined or doubtful. You are always becoming something, whether intentionally or accidentally. The danger is not negative thinking alone. The danger is unconscious thinking. A life lived without mental direction will always drift toward the strongest external influence, and that influence rarely serves your highest interest. You do not rise by wishy. You rise by thinking differently long before results appear. At first, nothing changes on the outside. That is the test. The mind wants evidence before belief, but the law works in reverse. Belief comes first, evidence later. Those who quit early do so because they expect immediate proof. Those who persist understand that thought plants seeds before it produces harvest. The moment you take responsibility for your thoughts, you reclaim power. No one can control your inner dialogue without your permission. No past failure has authority unless you continue to repeat it. No criticism has weight unless you internalize it. You are not required to believe every thought that enters your mind. You are required to choose which ones stay. Thought is the first cause, and mastery of thought is mastery of life, because when the mind is clear, directed, and disciplined, action becomes inevitable, courage becomes natural, persistence becomes automatic, and results eventually have no choice but to follow. Definiteness of purpose is the moment your life stops drifting and starts moving with force, because a clear decision cuts through confusion the way a blade cuts through resistance. Most people are not failing because they lack talent, intelligence, or opportunity. They are failing because they have never made a final decision about what they are here to do. A scattered aim creates scattered results. When the mind does not know exactly where it is going, effort leaks in every direction, and years are lost staying busy without ever building anything meaningful. The human mind is designed to obey clarity. When you give it a precise target, it begins organizing behavior, energy, and perception around that target automatically. Without purpose, the mind defaults to comfort, distraction, and imitation. It follows routines instead of vision. It reacts instead of directs. Purpose is not a wish or a vague dream. It is a fixed intention backed by commitment. It is deciding in advance what you will pursue, what you will ignore, and what you will no longer tolerate. Indecision is one of the most expensive habits a person can carry. It disguises itself as patience, realism, or waiting for the right time, but in reality it is fear avoiding responsibility. Every time you delay choosing a direction, you silently choose to remain where you are. Time does not pause for clarity. Life keeps moving, and without a defined aim, it moves you instead of being moved by you. A definite purpose simplifies everything. It makes decisions faster, distractions weaker, and effort more efficient. When you know what you want, you stop negotiating with excuses. You stop explaining yourself to people who do not share your vision. You stop chasing validation because direction replaces approval. Purpose creates an internal standard, and that standard becomes stronger than mood, opinion, or temporary discomfort. People without purpose are easily influenced. They borrow goals from society, absorb expectations from family, and imitate lifestyles they have never questioned. This creates inner conflict because borrowed desires never generate sustained energy. Only a purpose that is personally chosen can survive pressure. When challenges arise, a borrowed goal collapses. A chosen purpose hardens. Clarity does not remove difficulty, it gives difficulty meaning. Struggle without purpose feels like punishment. Struggle with purpose feels like progress. The same effort that feels unbearable in confusion becomes acceptable when it is clearly connected to a goal. Purpose transforms pain into investment. Without it, even small obstacles feel heavy. Definiteness of purpose also builds confidence, not because success is guaranteed, but because direction eliminates self-doubt. Doubt thrives in vagueness. When you are unsure of what you want, every obstacle feels like a sign to stop. When your purpose is clear, obstacles are interpreted as tests, not warnings. The mind stops asking whether it should continue and starts asking how. The greatest waste of potential is not failure, it is aimless persistence. Working hard in the wrong direction produces exhaustion, not fulfillment. Many people pride themselves on effort, yet avoid clarity. They confuse movement with progress. Purpose is what converts effort into results. Without it, even discipline becomes draining. A definite purpose demands sacrifice. It requires saying no to good opportunities to protect the right one. It requires temporary discomfort, delayed gratification, and the courage to stand alone when others do not understand your path. This is why few people have it. Purpose removes the safety of excuses. Once you know what you want, you can no longer blame confusion for lack of action. The mind responds powerfully to commitment. When you commit fully, internal resistance decreases. Procrastination weakens. Energy aligns. What once felt forced begins to feel natural. This is not magic, it is focus. A focused mind wastes nothing. It learns faster, recovers quicker, and adapts under pressure because it knows what matters and what does not. Every major achievement in history began the same way, with a clear intention held long before evidence appeared. Results follow direction, not the other way around. Those who wait for certainty before committing never move. Those who commit first create certainty through action. Purpose is not discovered by thinking alone, it is reinforced by execution. You do not need to know every step. You need to know the direction. Direction creates momentum, and momentum reveals the next step. Confusion fades when action is aligned with purpose. The future does not reward hesitation. It responds to decisiveness. Definiteness of purpose is not about controlling every outcome. It is about refusing to live without direction. It is choosing a target, committing to it daily, and adjusting without abandoning it. When purpose is clear, discipline becomes easier. Persistence becomes natural, and the mind stops wandering. A life with purpose does not guarantee ease, but it guarantees progress, and progress is what separates those who build from those who merely exist. Daily mental discipline is the difference between a mind that commands life and a mind that reacts to it, because what you repeatedly allow into your thoughts becomes the force that quietly shapes your decisions, your habits, and your future. The mind is not strengthened by intention alone, it is trained through consistent control. Just as the body responds to daily exercise, the mind responds to daily direction. Without discipline, thought drifts. With discipline, thought obeys. Most people lose control of their day before it even begins. They wake up and immediately submit their attention to noise, opinions, and emotional triggers. By the time they try to focus, their mental energy is already scattered. A disciplined mind does not start the day reacting, it starts the day deciding. It chooses what will be allowed, what will be ignored, and what will be reinforced. This choice, repeated daily, builds inner stability that cannot be shaken by external pressure. Mental discipline is not about suppressing thoughts, it is about selecting them. The mind produces thousands of impulses, memories, and reactions, but not all deserve residence. Every thought you entertain is either strengthening you or weakening you. There is no neutral thinking. Repeated negative focus becomes mental conditioning, and conditioning determines behavior under stress. In moments of pressure, you do not think your way out. You default to what you have practiced. Consistency is what transforms discipline into identity. A single focused day means little. A focused mind, practiced daily, becomes a weapon. Repetition removes effort. What once required conscious control eventually becomes automatic. This is how discipline stops feeling heavy and starts feeling natural. The mind learns what is expected of it, and over time it complies without resistance. Distraction is not a lack of time, it is a lack of standards. When you do not define what deserves your attention, everything competes for it. A disciplined mind has rules. It knows when to engage and when to withdraw. It understands that attention is currency, and wasted attention produces wasted results. The ability to concentrate deeply, daily, is not talent. It is trained restraint. Emotional control is a product of mental discipline. Emotions rise and fall, but they do not have to dictate action. Without training, emotion leads and logic follows. With discipline, logic leads and emotion adjusts. This does not mean ignoring feeling. It means refusing to let feeling override purpose. Strength is not the absence of emotion. It is the ability to act correctly despite it. The greatest battles are internal and silent. No one sees the moment you choose focus over distraction, clarity over chaos, discipline over comfort. These decisions do not receive applause, yet they determine every visible outcome later. Daily mental discipline is built in private and revealed in public. Those who appear calm under pressure have not been gifted stability, they have trained it. Mental fatigue often comes from uncontrolled thinking, not from work itself. Worry, overanalysis, and mental clutter drain energy faster than effort. A disciplined mind reduces noise. It replaces speculation with intention and fear with structure. This creates mental efficiency, allowing you to do more with less emotional strain. Self-respect grows from discipline. Every time you control your thoughts instead of being controlled by them, you reinforce trust in yourself. This trust compounds. Confidence is not built through praise, it is built through repeated self-mastery. When you know you can direct your mind, you stop fearing situations that once overwhelmed you. Daily mental discipline also protects long-term vision. Short-term impulses always compete with long-term goals. Without discipline, the immediate always wins. With discipline, the future is protected. The mind learns to delay gratification, to endure boredom, and to remain committed even when excitement fades. This is where most people quit, not because they cannot continue, but because they never trained their minds to stay. You cannot rise above the level of your mental habits. Action follows thought, and thought follows discipline. If you want stronger results, you must first demand stronger thinking. This demand must be made daily without negotiation. Discipline practiced occasionally builds nothing. Discipline practiced consistently builds everything. A disciplined mind does not wait for motivation. It operates on structure. It understands that motivation is unreliable, but routine is permanent. When the mind knows what is required each day, resistance decreases. The decision has already been made. Energy is conserved. Focus is automatic. Daily mental discipline is not dramatic, and it is not easy, but it is decisive. It quietly reshapes identity, strengthens will, and aligns behavior with purpose. Over time, it creates a level of inner control that makes external chaos irrelevant. When the mind is trained daily, life stops feeling overwhelming and starts feeling directed, because control has been restored at the source. Self-directed faith is the moment you stop waiting for permission to believe in yourself and start generating certainty from within, because real belief does not depend on evidence, applause, or reassurance. It is not borrowed from others, inherited from circumstances, or granted by success after it arrives. It is created deliberately through conscious decision and reinforced through repeated action. Without this inner faith, effort collapses at the first sign of resistance, and potential remains unused no matter how great it may be. Most people misunderstand faith as hope, but hope is passive and fragile. Hope waits for conditions to improve. Self-directed faith moves first and allows conditions to catch up. It is the decision to act as though your goal is possible before proof appears. This is not blind optimism. It is trained conviction. The mind must be taught what to expect, and expectation shapes behavior long before results are visible. External validation is unreliable. Applause fades, encouragement disappears, and critics multiply the moment you pursue something meaningful. A person who depends on outside belief will retreat the moment that belief is withdrawn. Self-directed faith eliminates that weakness. When conviction comes from within, opposition loses power. Doubt from others becomes background noise instead of a stopping point. Faith strengthens through use. Each time you take action aligned with your intention, belief deepens. Each time you hesitate, belief weakens. This is why small acts of courage matter. They are not insignificant, they are deposits. The mind keeps score. When you consistently act in alignment with what you claim to believe, confidence becomes internalized. When you repeatedly hesitate, the mind learns to distrust your intentions. Fear is not the enemy of faith, inaction is. Fear exists in everyone who attempts something meaningful. The difference is not the absence of fear, but the presence of decision. Self-directed faith does not eliminate fear, it overrides it. It says, move anyway. It says, continue anyway. Over time, fear loses its authority because it no longer controls behavior. The mind believes what behavior proves. Words alone are weak. Affirmations without action create frustration, not faith. When action follows intention, belief becomes grounded. This is how self-directed faith becomes stable instead of emotional. It is not dependent on mood. It does not rise and fall with daily circumstances. It is built on evidence created by your own persistence. Most limits are internal agreements made unconsciously. You accept them because they feel familiar, not because they are true. Self-directed faith challenges these agreements. It replaces inherited doubt with chosen belief. This process is uncomfortable because it requires confronting old narratives, but discomfort is the cost of growth. Comfort maintains identity. Discomfort transforms it. Faith also requires patience. Results rarely arrive on the schedule the mind prefers. Without self-directed faith, delay feels like failure. With it, delay is interpreted as preparation. This shift in interpretation determines whether you persist or quit. Those who trust their direction continue moving even when progress is invisible. Those who do not require constant reassurance and eventually stop. Self-directed faith creates internal authority. You stop asking whether you are capable and start proving it through action. This authority changes posture, speech, and decision-making. You move differently when you trust yourself. You stop over-explaining. You stop shrinking goals to fit comfort. You stop seeking approval before committing. The strongest form of belief is quiet. It does not need announcement. It does not demand agreement. It shows itself through consistency. When you believe in your direction, you protect it. You invest in it. You show up when enthusiasm fades. This consistency is what eventually produces results that look sudden to others but were built slowly through faith-driven action. Doubt will appear repeatedly, but it does not need to be defeated permanently. It only needs to be ignored daily. Faith is not the absence of doubt. It is the refusal to let doubt decide. Each day you choose belief over hesitation, you reinforce identity. Over time, belief becomes default. Self-directed faith is not arrogance. It does not assume superiority. It assumes responsibility. It recognizes that no one else can believe for you. No one else can persist for you. No one else can commit daily on your behalf. This understanding creates strength instead of pressure. When faith is directed inward, progress becomes inevitable. You stop waiting for confidence and start creating it. You stop waiting for certainty and start building it through movement. Over time, the mind adapts to this pattern and begins to expect success instead of fearing failure. This expectation shapes behavior, and behavior shapes outcomes. Self-directed faith is the engine behind every lasting achievement, because it sustains effort when motivation disappears and clarity wavers. When belief is internally generated, discipline becomes easier. Persistence becomes natural, and quitting loses its appeal, because the strongest voice guiding you is no longer external, but firmly your own. Control of attention is the moment you reclaim ownership of your life, because whatever consistently holds your focus quietly determines what you become. Attention is not a small skill. It is the foundation of discipline, learning, confidence, and achievement. Where your attention goes, your energy follows, and where your energy flows, results eventually appear. A mind that cannot control its focus cannot control its direction, and a life without direction will always feel scattered, rushed, and unfulfilled. Most people believe they lack time, when in reality they lack control of attention. Hours are lost not to hard work, but to distraction disguised as rest, entertainment, or harmless scrolling. Attention is constantly being pulled by noise, urgency, and emotional triggers designed to keep the mind reactive. When attention is fragmented, effort becomes shallow. Nothing is mastered, nothing is completed deeply, and progress feels slow even when activity is constant. Attention is the gateway to thought. What you focus on repeatedly becomes what you think about automatically. Over time, this focus shapes perception, emotion, and decision-making. If your attention is constantly placed on problems, fear grows. If it is placed on comparison, insecurity grows. If it is placed on clarity and action, confidence grows. The mind does not resist what it is fed consistently. It adapts. A disciplined life begins with selective focus. You cannot give your attention to everything and expect excellence in anything. Attention must be guarded deliberately, not casually. This requires standards. Not every message deserves a response. Not every opinion deserves consideration. Not every opportunity deserves pursuit. When standards are absent, attention is consumed by whatever is loudest, not what is most important. Control of attention is also control of emotion. Emotional reactions are often the result of unmanaged focus. The mind amplifies whatever it stares at. When you dwell on frustration, frustration intensifies. When you dwell on progress, momentum builds. This does not mean ignoring reality. It means choosing where to place mental energy within reality. Focus does not deny difficulty, it directs response. Deep focus creates leverage. 1 hour of undistracted concentration produces more progress than 10 hours of divided effort. The mind performs best when it is fully engaged in a single task. Multitasking weakens results because attention is diluted. Mastery requires immersion, and immersion requires the courage to disconnect from constant stimulation. Most distractions feel urgent, but are rarely important. They create the illusion of productivity while preventing meaningful progress. A person who cannot tolerate boredom will never achieve depth. Boredom is the gateway to focus. It is the moment the mind resists before it settles. Those who escape boredom through distraction remain shallow. Those who endure it develop concentration. Attention shapes identity. You become what you consistently attend to. If your attention is trained on growth, learning becomes automatic. If it is trained on drama, chaos follows. This is not coincidence, it is conditioning. The mind strengthens whatever pathways are used most often. Focus eye, mental training, whether intentional or accidental. Control of attention requires boundaries. Boundaries are not restrictions, they are protections. They preserve energy for what matters. Saying no is not rejection, it is prioritization. Every yes to distraction is a no to progress. Every yes to focus compounds over time into skill, confidence, and momentum. A focused mind is calm under pressure because it is not scattered. When attention is trained, decisions become clearer. Overthinking decreases because the mind is not constantly switching targets. This clarity creates speed. Speed is not haste, it is decisiveness born from focus. The modern world profits from distraction. Constant alerts, endless content, and emotional headlines are designed to hijack attention. To control your focus is to resist being controlled. This resistance is a daily practice, not a one-time decision. Each day presents a choice between reaction and intention. Focus is strengthened the same way muscle is strengthened, through repeated use under resistance. Each time you resist distraction and return to your task, attention becomes stronger. Each time you surrender to interruption, attention weakens. Small daily decisions compound into either control or chaos. Attention also determines self-respect. When you honor your focus, you communicate to yourself that your goals matter. This builds internal trust. When you constantly interrupt yourself, you teach your mind that comfort outranks commitment. Over time, this erodes confidence. Control of attention is not about isolation from the world. It is about engagement on your terms. It is choosing depth over noise, intention over impulse, and purpose over reaction. When attention is mastered, effort becomes efficient, learning accelerates, and progress becomes visible. A life directed by focused attention moves forward steadily because it is no longer pulled apart by everything that demands notice but deserves none. Persistence over emotion is the line that separates those who finish from those who start, because emotion is temporary but commitment is decisive. Feelings rise and fall without permission, but progress only responds to action repeated over time. The greatest achievements are not built on enthusiasm. They are built on the ability to continue when enthusiasm disappears. Anyone can act when motivation is high. Very few can persist when emotion argues for comfort, retreat, or delay. Most people allow emotion to lead and logic to follow. When they feel inspired, they move. When they feel tired, discouraged, or uncertain, they stop. This creates inconsistency, and inconsistency guarantees unstable results. Emotion is reactive by nature. It responds to environment, opinion, and short-term outcomes. Persistence is proactive. It operates from decision, not mood. Emotion magnifies the present moment. A bad day feels permanent. A setback feels like a verdict. Without persistence, temporary discomfort becomes a reason to quit. With persistence, discomfort is recognized as part of the process, not a signal to stop. The difference is not strength of feeling, but strength of commitment. Every long-term goal passes through periods of boredom, frustration, and doubt. These are not signs of failure, they are indicators of progress beyond novelty. The mind craves stimulation, and when stimulation fades, emotion demands change. Persistence refuses to negotiate with that demand. It understands that depth is reached only after excitement fades. Emotional decision-making is expensive. It causes people to abandon progress for relief. It convinces them to trade long-term reward for short-term comfort. Persistence protects the future by overriding these impulses. It does not eliminate emotion, it refuses to obey it. Discipline is persistence in motion. It is the choice to act correctly regardless of how you feel. This choice, repeated daily, builds reliability. Reliability builds confidence. Confidence, B, yields momentum. This sequence never begins with emotion. It begins with decision. Emotion is influenced by thought, and thought is influenced by repetition. When persistence becomes habitual, emotion adjusts. The mind learns what is expected. Resistance weakens because negotiation ends. When action is non-negotiable, emotion loses leverage. Most people quit silently. They do not announce failure. They simply stop showing up. They stop after small delays, minor disappointments, or slow progress. Persistence sees stopping as more painful than continuing. It reframes effort as identity rather than obligation. Pain is unavoidable in any meaningful pursuit. The question is not whether pain will appear, but whether emotion will be allowed to define it. Persistence turns pain into information. It asks what can be learned, adjusted, or strengthened. Emotion without persistence turns pain into justification. Consistency compounds quietly. Small actions performed despite emotional resistance create results that appear sudden later. Observers see the outcome, not the endurance behind it. Persistence does not seek recognition, it seeks completion. Emotional comfort is seductive. It whispers that rest is deserved, that delay is harmless, that tomorrow will be better. Persistence answers with action. It understands that tomorrow is shaped by what is done today, not by how today feels. Self-respect grows through persistence. Each time you continue despite wanting to stop, you reinforce trust in yourself. This trust becomes a stabilizing force. You stop fearing bad days because you know they will not control you. This internal stability is rare and powerful. The strongest individuals are not emotionally numb. They feel doubt, fatigue, and frustration like everyone else. The difference is that they do not grant these feelings authority. They act first and let emotion catch up. Persistence simplifies life. When quitting is removed as an option, decisions become easier. Energy once spent debating is redirected into execution. The mind relaxes when it knows what is required. Every goal tests persistence more than talent. Talent opens doors, persistence keeps them open. Skill begins projects, persistence finishes them. Emotion starts things, persistence completes them. Progress is rarely linear. There are pauses, setbacks, and plateaus. Emotion interprets these as failure. Persistence interprets them as training. This interpretation determines outcome. Persistence over emotion is not force, it is resolve. It is choosing commitment repeatedly, even when the mind argues against it. Over time, persistence reshapes identity. You become someone who finishes, someone who endures, someone who cannot be easily shaken. When persistence becomes your default response, emotion loses its ability to derail progress. You no longer wait to feel ready. You move because movement is who you are. In that state, growth becomes inevitable because the one thing required for success, continued action, is no longer dependent on how you feel. Responsibility without excuse is the moment you reclaim full control over your life, because the instant you blame something outside yourself, you surrender the power to change it. Blame feels relieving in the moment, but it is costly in the long term. It removes pressure, yet it also removes authority. As long as responsibility is divided, progress remains limited. Only when responsibility is total does personal power return. Most people do not fail because of circumstance alone. They fail because they explain their circumstance instead of mastering their response to it. Explanation feels productive, but it produces nothing. Excuses delay growth by convincing the mind that effort is optional. Responsibility removes that illusion. It forces action, even when conditions are unfair, inconvenient, or uncomfortable. Taking responsibility does not mean denying hardship. It means refusing to let hardship dictate behavior. Life is unequal, unpredictable, and often harsh, but responsibility shifts focus from complaint to control. The question changes from, "Why did this happen?" to "What will I do now?" This shift ends stagnation. Excuses protect ego at the expense of progress. They preserve self-image while sacrificing results. Responsibility does the opposite. It challenges ego, but it builds capability. Every time you accept full responsibility, you strengthen the belief that you can influence outcomes. This belief fuels persistence. Blame creates dependency. It teaches the mind to wait for change instead of creating it. Responsibility creates independence. It demands self-reliance and initiative. This demand is uncomfortable, but discomfort is the price of growth. Many people mistake responsibility for guilt. Guilt focuses on the past. Responsibility focuses on the present and future. It asks what can be done now, regardless of what should have been done before. This forward orientation accelerates improvement. Responsibility also clarifies priorities. When excuses are removed, time and energy are redirected toward action. Complaints fade, solutions multiply. The mind becomes resourceful when it cannot escape through blame. Progress accelerates when responsibility is embraced fully. You stop waiting for permission, support, or perfect conditions. You act with what you have. This action compounds into skill, confidence, and momentum. Responsibility strengthens character. Each time you own an outcome, you reinforce integrity. This integrity builds trust with yourself and others. Trust increases opportunity. Those who succeed do not avoid failure.